It appears as if death has resurfaced yet again on Fargo. We get we're calling him death. It's a dead person, a ghost, death. It it seems as if the Smutney family is in a lot of trouble, and we have we open with Ethelrita's birthday party. The tone is very somber. Everybody's from the things that occurred in last week's episode, and as she's blowing out her candles, the ghost, death, whatever you want to call it, is there with her. We've talked about this in the past, how much supernatural effect will there be on this particular season. Where do you guys stand now after seeing this episode? Do you still think it may be subtle, or do you think it's going to be a major factor? What do you think?
Well, talked about the Irish, because I said that the Irish, I think the Italians aren't going to be the bad guys for too much longer. It's going to be the Irish. But after seeing that scene, I started to think that maybe it's everybody's going to have to band together to fight death here shortly. Like he's just going to start running around killing folks. I'm not sure that it's not, not necessarily death, but something that's haunting the Smutney family.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's going to become the main focus, because they keep coming back to it. And I don't know that the main focus is going to be Loy Cannon and the Italians too much longer. That's almost feels like it's almost wrapped up, and we're only halfway through the season. So I don't know.
Well, yeah. And given that this figure seems to be an omen most of the time of some kind, the way it's framed would lead you to believe that, it's Ethelrita's death that it's warning about, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's just kind of a specter of death that's looming around because of, what's to come. We're going to have, to, I guess, jump ahead since it ties in my opinion, a bit. Like we have Nurse Mayflower said it right for the first time. Kind of piecing things together and potentially figuring out that it was Ethelrita who reported her. And that Ethelrita is onto her. So, maybe this is Nurse Mayflower's death. And it's just that the death centers around this family and Ethelrita herself. Like, it'll be a kill or be killed situation for her.
Well, Ethelrita's that ghost or specter or death or whatever seems to be following her around. So I don't know, maybe if because she's worked in the funeral home business.
Well, it was also with the money.
That's what I'm saying. She was there when
Ethelrita wasn't there when
she wasn't there.
Wasn't
I
there?
thought that she was there looking at them when they were all talking. And
oh no, Brian's talking about when they were washing the money.
Yeah.
And,
yes. Okay. Yeah. I thought that Ethelrita was. I was picturing a different scene and that scene combined for whatever reason, because she went to talk to them, and I thought that Swanee was still sick when she went and talked to him the first time. But no, I don't know then. For whatever reason, I put that together in my head. But you're right. It was when she was washing the money, and she basically was sitting over top of her. He pulled the blanket off of her, and then she came out there to check on her. Swanee and Zamaria or Zafrana or whatever the fuck her name was.
I think it's more of an omen that, there's a potential of death, because and I can't remember the other one's name, not Swanee, but the one with the cowboy hat.
Yeah, it's something with the Z. I don't.
Yeah, but she didn't necessarily die, but she nearly did. So it's an omen, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there will be a death, but that there's the potential of it.
Yeah, I found it interesting. The reason I opened with it was, Ethelrita's sort of been one of the main characters throughout the show, yet she's really not in this episode outside of the opening shot. And it was interesting that they went out of their way to just give us literally a minute and a half of just her blowing out her birthday candles, and that thing, that presence was there, and then the rest of the episode played out. So I don't know, it did have an ominous feel, like it's telling us something is coming, something is about to happen, and clearly it's going to involve. I'm assuming it's going to involve Etherita, or at least her family, at the least.
It's Zelmare,
Zelmare.
Zelmare. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but
But this is Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer and Larry, and yes, we're talking about Fargo season 4, episode number 6. The plot is moving along, as Spencer said a few moments ago. It feels like some of the storylines are wrapping up. There's sort of a time limit that's been given in this episode, because New York, wants things settled in a certain amount of time. If you've not subbed to the channel, please do so. The channel is growing. We're really happy about that. We appreciate it. Everyone who's already subbed, hit the bell, hit the like. The like really helps the channel. Leave a comment. Let us know. We've been putting these up on Tuesdays as opposed to Mondays. What is your preference? The numbers seem to be about the same. So if you guys really want it on Mondays, let us know. Put that in the comments below. So, and we're starting The Mandalorian on Friday, so check that out. I want to talk about Antoon Dumini. It's a character that's been in the background, not really a prominent, and we get his backstory and his ending all wrapped up in this episode. I thought it was interesting. He was sent by Josto to kill Loy Cannon's youngest son. And I thought it was interesting that we get the perspective of a hitman who doesn't want to do the job. And, you watch all these, mob movies and shows, and, the hitmen, they're told to do the job, they go do the job. But this sort of slowed it down and said, hey, this is his family. This is his story about coming to America. We get all this stuff with him, even get the fact that he decides not to do the job. At the very last moment, he holsters the gun. He's not going to do the hit, yet Rabbi didn't know this and kills him anyways. What did y'all think about that character story arc? Now, another show that's done this well as far as giving you a hitman's backstory, The Wire, has done it beautifully, where you feel you have a character that has to do a thing they don't want to do. But anyways, just saying, if you've not seen The Wire, you really should watch The Wire. Great show. But what did y'all think about this character and his story arc, and what was the point of it, other than, do you think it was just, to show us that there are real people involved in this war? Yeah. Obviously it's a show, but you know what I mean.
His story, to me, there's been a couple like sadder moments in this show, but that one to me, I guess, drew the most emotion in that direction so far, just because, when he went there and was trying to reason with his wife, being like, hey, why don't you take him off for a ride? He's like, no, I can't. I'm working. And she understood immediately what he meant. But, seeing the anguish on his face just from the beginning, even when he was talking to Josto, he was trying to reason with him, be like, hey, that's not what New York wants. And he's just like, well, and Josto lays out this whole plan about how he's basically going to put it on Calameda and Giatano. He's going to basically frame them for killing the kid. So I was just like, oh, shit. So he's super conflicted from the jump. And then, watching his whole story and given about how, America had the Italian prisoners of war, and then he became a citizen, and like all these things, I was like, damn. And then to see him decide, you know what, I'm not going to kill this kid, and then get shot, I was like, oh damn. It was very heartfelt. And the actor, I don't know who he is, I don't recognize him from anything else, but watching his face throughout the whole episode, he did a very good job of drawing emotion from me.
Well, yeah, and even though I saw it coming, it was still a very emotional scene, because like you mentioned before, this isn't one of those shows where good people always get what they deserve. it's a more grounded take on this kind of thing. And it's yeah, it was neat following him and getting, like you said, a human perspective from a hitman, and it's a sort of, and you get the idea that maybe he's done this plenty. Well, because he says, like you said, he says it's for work, and his wife instantly knows, but he's probably never had to kill a child before, and that's a line that he hasn't crossed yet, or maybe at this stage in his life wasn't willing to cross, and it kind of shows a lack of foresight on Josto's part, because this guy's kids were playing with this kid that he's telling them to kill. They've they've already sort of treated him as like a family friend who's come over to visit or something. They don't see him as just this this person that was traded for power. The way his dad mentioned it. They kind of see him as a person. So I'd say it was bad. It was bad foresight on Josto's part. Like if he was going to have someone do it, probably definitely shouldn't have been him.
And why the hell would he tell Rabbi? Like he.
Yeah.
That was a huge mistake, obviously. Let's talk about Josto's plan real quick, and then let's dive into that. Because both leads of the mob, Loy Cannon and Josto Fada, both sort of lay out plans in this episode. We'll get to Cannon later, but Josto's plan is exactly what you said. He's trying to eliminate his brother. He's trying to take out Calmeda because he knows he's not loyal. He's trying to ally with New York, rule the family, and he's trying to come to some kind of deal with the Cannon gang. Most of his plan, it sort of makes sense, but you're right. He doesn't know how to read people, including his own guys. For the most part, as he laid out his plan, I was like, all right, there's a lot of smart in this. I see what he's trying to do, but he's not good enough at understanding people. I also think Loy Cannon is better at it, way better at it, and his plan is pretty solid too. Although I think both of them, they're uncertain. I don't want to get into Cannon stuff yet, but I have thoughts on it. What do you specifically Josto stuff?
Well, yeah. I'd say to reference Cannon one more time. Cannon is going about things smarter and more careful because, as he's mentioned himself in this episode, he's outgunned. And Josto is, he has a lot of backing. He is, like, he can call for help from other members of the mob. Yeah, it's conditional, but still he can get that help. And it's sort of ingrained and expected that he gets it. Cannon, you would assume, would always have to go about his business smarter. So that may be one of the things that makes Josto a little sloppy.
Well, I think that you brought up a good point, Brian. He doesn't know how to read people because his plan is basically framing his brother, who he wants him to die anyway, and then framing Calmeda for killing the kid. So he's trying to basically kill two birds with, I don't know, one gun.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. And then he's going to put it on these people who he wants them to die anyway, and then still try to go back to Loy and be like, hey, man, I'm sorry about your kid. This was my brother's doing. Kill him if you want. I want him to die. I think he deserves to die. Take him out. And then, so he's trying to use Loy to get rid of his problem in his own family, and then go back to the New York guys and be like, look, my competition took him out. We need to team up to take out my competition. So he's trying to use his competition to basically take out his problem in his family, and then get with his family to take out his competition locally. But he's put his trust in the wrong people. Because his plan really is not bad.
He hasn't earned the loyalty, and I think that's where he's screwing up. Is he thinks his name alone warrants the loyalty of his men, but at the end of the day, Antoon, Rabbi, they're not that loyal to him, and that's his mistake.
Well, I'd say it's more, it's kind of the opposite. Like, Rabbi's seemed pretty loyal up until now. And and Antoon, like everybody's got a line, and it seems clear to me that as weary as Antoon seemed to be from the beginning of this episode, that was a line too far. And with Rabbi identifies, well, you've had Rabbi take care of this kid the whole time.
That's true, but if you're not willing to do what the boss says, that's not loyal, even if it is crossing a line.
Under every other circumstance, well, yeah, it's like, even in the mob.
You tell Stringer Bell that you're not going to do a job and see what happens.
Well, it's the sort of thing like if Stringer Bell tells you to kill your best friend or to kill
Watch The Wire.
A child.
You just named an exact plot.
Well, yes, it is. But here's the thing. Yeah, that's not a loyalty everybody has. Like even mobsters, there are lines. You would typically, in that sort of situation, if that was still his plan, he should have asked someone else to do it. Someone who wasn't as closely tied to the kid. Someone who hasn't grown attached. Maybe not send his most weary hitman whose family is also partially watching the kid, and then you just tell them to accept the consequences, and as they have,
still lack of
so
loyalty.
far.
Yeah, but that goes back to what Brian said. Well, I
think
it's
really not.
He doesn't know how to read people at all.
How is it not? Because it's not a slavish, devotion like you'd have to a deity. It's still loyalty, but like I said, everybody's got their lines. Mob or no mob.
I completely.
Yeah, but I think that goes back to what Brian also said was that.
Well, if you're trying to be realistic, if we want to talk about cartoon mobsters that mindlessly obey, then.
But he didn't read those two people correctly. He didn't read because loyalty, I wouldn't, I love my parents and stuff, but if my dad came up to me and said, you know what, strangle your daughter, I'd be like,
exactly.
You know what, Dad?
That's what I'm getting at.
But I'm also not in a mob. I also don't fear my dad enough to be like, you know what, if he says this, he's going to take somebody out anyway. So they don't fear Josto enough to be like, you know what, if I don't do what he says, he's not going to come after my family. Because Antoon, if he feared and was loyal enough to Josto, in the mob world, what I see from, I'm from shows and documentaries and stuff, if Josto would have came down and been like, hey, Antoon, I need you to do this thing, Antoon should have known that if he didn't do it, Josto was going to kill his family or come take his wife or come kill his kids.
Well, here's the thing. I'm pretty sure he was. I'm pretty sure he was aware of that, though. Is the thing. We don't get to see what his plan was next. He may have very well done the same thing that Rabbi did there. He might have just put him in a car, or it may have hidden him away or something until the whole thing blew over to some degree. I'm pretty sure he knows that his life was on the line, and you can only motivate people with fear so much. And with mobsters, it's not just fear, it is loyalty, right? And like you said, loyalty has its limits. Like you wouldn't kill your child for your father. You wouldn't kill an adopted child for the same reason. And that's kind of what this kid was to them to some degree, given that they were taking care of them. No matter how deep that loyalty goes. The mob is supposed to be family as well, in a way.
Yes, but
they're not loyal.
My dad's not going to try and...
I'm just saying that's a little too black and white.
I'm just saying that the mob, that's how they ruled back then. That's how they kept people in line, is through fear and stuff, And the reason that Josto's had this disloyalty from within is because he hasn't shown what Gaetano showed he was going to do. Gaetano was ruling with that iron fist, which is why he has that division to begin with. Whereas Loy doesn't have that division in his ranks because he shows people what he's going to do. He's just like, what? So he's, he went to this family who's, runs a fucking funeral home, but he told them, hey,
he told them that he was going to murder them in front of their daughter.
Yes.
He told them when he gives an order, his men do what he says. Now, I understand you're saying that there's a line, but if there is a line and you're giving orders, then your men are not truly loyal to you. There should be no line. All of Josto's men, none of them respect him. None of them consider him, like you said, they don't fear him. They're not going to follow his orders. That's a problem for him.
They probably do fear and respect him. I can't imagine he was planning to go back home, sit on his couch, and live his life after not killing that kid. It's like it. I'm just saying it's a little simplistic to look at it that way. I don't think it's a
I
matter
disagree,
of
but
not
that's
fearing
fine.
them. And I'll say this. If he didn't fear him, Rabbi Mulligan, right away, he wouldn't say when the time is right. He wouldn't have said it to Lloyd's son. We're gonna run when things pop off and when the time is right. He would have just left. He just left because he wasn't afraid, right? Because fear is the sole motivator.
Look,
And
if
and,
all
and,
those men are loyal to him, and that's fine. But
well, and here's the thing: ruling like his brother does, also, chances are that would have just got him killed. I get what you're saying. If he did things more like Lloyd, that'd make more sense. But doing things like Gaetano probably would just get him killed eventually.
Well, I'm not saying that it wouldn't have got him killed.
yeah, I'm not
Eventually.
saying
I'm
that
saying
either.
Well,
that
that's a lack of loyalty, though. They're still afraid of Gaetano, but lack of loyalty.
Oh, agree to disagree.
Yeah.
But Cannon, whose men are loyal to him, outside of, well,
Wait till we get that
well,
Cannon betrayal next week.
well, I think that it also is. You look at coaches. I equate like a lot of this to many different facets. People aren't buying into Josto's plan. People buy into Loy's plan because he's not only is he smart, he's proven that his plans work. It's proven that he knows what he's doing. Josto doesn't have the full on loyalty of everybody because his plans have fallen apart over and over. And I think that if he's not, it's not just loyalty. He's proven that he doesn't have his shit all the way together. So his people aren't necessarily buying into his mantra. They're not buying into his plan. Whereas Loy, he's got everybody buying into his shit. Like he has got 100% of his people 100% on board. And I think that's part of Josto's
I
issue
feel
is as well, is that he doesn't have everybody's loyalty just because they're not 100% buying into what he's selling.
well. I'll put it this way. I think that with the exception of Gaetano and I'm trying to remember Calmeda. Yeah, Calmeda. With the exception of Gaetano and Calmeda, I think he had as much loyalty he was going to get as given. Well, given how much he's given, because we've seen with Rabbi that yeah, Rabbi is a part of their gang to some degree. Rabbi is not family. He was never treated as family. He wasn't integrated. He's got that little separate area up in the basement. He's not living the life of luxury that they are. He was never fully integrated because it's not just about fear. It's about that. It's about creating an idea of respect and family, and they haven't done that within Rabbi. And yet he wants to run to him for advice. He wants to entrust him with his most important assets, but he doesn't want to give him. He doesn't want to treat him the way he does the rest of the family. And as far as was it Adrian, the name of the hitman? Adrian?
Antoon Dumini.
Yeah. As far as Antoon, Antoon seemed, like I said, a bit weary to me. He seemed like he was really sour on the idea of killing a child. Probably never had to do that before. It was probably a new thing for him.
You had Calmeda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Calmeda. Calmeda's still happy.
Gaetano, Antoon Dumini, Rabbi, and Otis all turned against Josto.
Still a little black and white. Very different.
Otis is very black and white. I agree, but Otis has been, part of their crew. He knows where Gaetano is, and yet he didn't tell Josto when he could have.
Yeah,
I don't know what his motives. I don't know what he's up to. I'm just making the point. My whole point of all this for the last 5 minutes is Josto's men are not truly loyal. They don't respect him. That's the point I've been trying to make.
My point is that
you're saying they are loyal, but they have a line. To me, that's not loyalty.
Well, no. That's not 100. That's the implication of what I've been saying. What I'm saying, sort of, until you lumped all these other people in here. What I'm saying now is that, Rabbi is loyal. That the guy who I'm going to call Adrian again, the hitman.
Antoon.
Antoon, thank you. Antoon is probably loyal. Calmeda, well, we know what Calmeda's about. He'd be pulling this stuff. Well, good point. You could keep Calmeda in check maybe with some fear, but Calmeda wants to kill. He's trigger happy. What Calmeda wants is a war. So when someone higher up that he thinks will let him get away with that comes along, he would have done it either way, whether it was his capo or anybody else's capo. Gaetano.
I had some stuff to say, but I was going to pee, so I'm going to mute myself here. Hold on.
Gaetano is his brother, and they've clearly had a back and forth their whole life. Gaetano was never loyal. Now we have Gaetano in there. We're talking about him. Those two, that's their angle. As far as the cop that's working with them and everything, the dirty cop, you want to talk about fear and fear motivating? Yeah, okay, maybe in this case you're right, because Lloyd certainly motivated him with fear. He showed him that he should be more afraid. He attacked him in a point where he's at his most vulnerable, and showed that he could. So I don't really think he's loyal to anybody right now. I think he's trying to live. And when you break it down to anybody that much, he's not going to die for this mob. He's not one of them. Again, much like Rabbi, they don't treat him like one of them. He's in on the take to some degree, probably, but he's not part of that family, and it seems like he's going to potentially die one way or another if he doesn't play his cards right. So no, he's not loyal.
I agree with Otis, and this has been fun, by the way. But the Otis.
Well, yeah, I'm sure we could argue this like
we could. We're just
like we argued the end of Lost.
Exactly.
We literally did that till the sun rose.
But I agree with the Otis. I still don't even know why Otis is working with the Italians initially. I don't know if it's a money thing or if he has something being held over him. Like, they've yet to give us sort of his
full story.
Yeah, why is he connected to the Italians in the first place? Like, we never got that story.
I feel like they saw a weak link. I think that they used him because they, in any organized crime syndicate type thing, they always look for a way into the police or the FBI or whatever it is, the authority figures in the area. So they looked for a way in, and they found him. They found that weak link. He is somebody who is impressionable, and it is somebody who they found would play ball. And I don't know why, but I think it's because after his fiance died and he became a cop, he probably, with everything that he's shown, is, I don't want to say impressionable. He is moldable. Like, they've been able to corrupt him.
I think that's the right word, malleable. Yes. Yeah.
Because I think initially when he first became a cop, he probably had all the intentions of, righting that wrong, going after murderers because, that's who killed his fiance. But I think that I don't think it was money. I think that he just felt like justice was never going to be able to be served. He felt initially when he became a cop, he was doing it for, those people who took his fiance from him. But I think that he is such a wreck that he saw what Loy was going to do. And now he's just like, oh shit, Loy's going to take me out. And now he's listening to Josto and being like, now shit, Josto's going to kill me. I think that Otis is going to kill himself. I don't think that anybody's going to get to Otis before Otis gets to Otis.
That's a possibility. Yeah, and I agree with you too that they probably, heck, early on, like you said, we never got a backstory, but early on, there's a good chance that Josto pulled the same thing that Lloyd did. And that's how he got him on board. They surprised him, caught him off guard, forced him to make a deal, or maybe implicated him in something.
Yeah, definitely. The only other thought I possibly had was, what if he somehow served with one of the Fadas in the war? Like, what if there's some kind of connection? But they've not said it, so I don't think they would be holding that.
Well, that may have been how they met
It
because they
could
showed
be,
where
yeah, I don't know.
Antoon went to. Oh, excuse me, I burped. He went to take out. What's his name? Satchel. I think that was the kid's name.
Yeah, Satchel.
Satchel Paige, the old baseball player. But I think that he took him to where he was held as a POW, which I'm thinking how close like Leavenworth area is to Kansas City. I'm not 100% sure, and I was gonna look that up. I hadn't yet, as to Italian POWs kept in Kansas area, but I think that he took him back to where he was held as a prisoner of war, and that may have been how they met Otis. Otis may have been in this area because of after he was done serving in the military, after he got pulled back, this may have been where he decided to stay.
Loy Cannon had a great plan. He took Otis, threatened him, basically said, "You're with me now." He had Etherita's aunt and her girlfriend
That was
attack
fucking beautiful.
Giotano's and take him as a hostage. I thought they were reenacting a scene from Scarface when she came through the window, came behind him. He yet again, Chris Rock delivers one of the greatest lines in the episode. He's like, your life's like a series of mistakes or something along those lines. But he said, "It's Dr. Senator. That's the one that got you killed."
Yeah.
that was a great line. I love the whole boxing thing. Just everything Chris Rock was saying yet again was great. His plan he's executing his plan. Everything seems to be running smooth. Otis, as I said, he could have betrayed them, but he didn't yet. I don't know what he's going to do, but so far his plan's working. We still have 6 more episodes. That's the most nerve-wracking part of it. It's like, well, shit, what's going to happen for 6 episodes? But as of right now, I would say Cannon seems to be the most in control, and with one exception, and that one exception is Deafy. I don't know if he's truly aware of him, and we keep getting shots of Deafy just sort of observing, paying. We don't really even know what his full intention is at this point. I don't know if Cannon knows about him, truly knows about him, or if he doesn't. We know the Italians know about him, but I don't think they know the extent of him digging into everything.
Well, yeah, and
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's one point where I will definitely 100% agree with you on how Josta is playing things, because he is playing his hand a little sloppy, especially when it comes to Deafy, because he's aware of the Marshal, and every time he calls I can't remember the guy's name, so bad with names. Yeah, every time he calls Otis in, he mentions Deafy, and he's like, "Oh, did you get rid of the Marshal? What's his name?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "Oh, well, get rid of him." And he's like, "No, this is a real concern for you. Like, this is the thing that may destroy him, even if he wins out in the end. The fact that he's been ignoring Deafy this whole time, that he's aware of him, but he's not really paying attention."
I just drew 2 things together that are very not even closely loosely based, but Otis from Andy Griffith's show is how Otis in this show dresses. Like dumbass hat and
the So is that going in the thumbnail now?
Might have to.
It's just like, I know it's Odis for this character in Fargo, but it's pronounced like Otis. It's Otis.
Yeah.
But it just, I thought of that while I was watching it because they kept saying his name. And then as soon as he put the hat on, it was all disheveled. I started like dying laughing. It was funny. But continue. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I think Deafy is at this point the
wild card.
The wild card. I don't know how he's going to factor in yet on either side.
It's hard to say. It really is. Like, is he going to actually solve things? Is he going to, make things turn from one direction to the other, or is he just going to be played for laughs? Is he?
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Mayflower, as you stated earlier, Larry, she's putting pieces together. She's, the letter situation. The ending, we just simply get, it appears that she kills another patient. I still don't know if she's just crazy or if there's something more going on to her story. I really hope they give us, some kind of backstory to her. But maybe they won't. Maybe it's just going to be left in the air. But it's hard to say. But yeah, where do you think the Mayflower story is going? Because it's sort of been on pause the last couple episodes.
Well, I think that they showed in this episode that not that she was trying to be more undercover, but I think she was. I think that she felt like the people were onto her a little bit because in her last job, the boss was kind of being like, hey, there's some weird shit going on. And she was able to manipulate him. So I think that this doctor in charge, not Dr. Senator, but this, admissions guy, he is not as, I don't want to say that he's not being manipulated as easy as her last boss. And I think that she was trying to get him, because there was that scene where she was talking to him and he was pulling the letter out. She was like, oh, I didn't forget about those cookies. He was like, yeah, whatever. And immediately went into, the accusations. And she was like, oh, shit. So I think that she realized that he wasn't going to be as manipulated as her last boss. But immediately, once she kind of got found out and couldn't deal with it anymore, she still killed the guy with gout, which I didn't know that that's what it was. It was swelling his knees up like that. But holy shit, that's some serious gout. But she just couldn't deal with it anymore. So now she's flying instead of under the radar. She doesn't care about that anymore. She let her crazy take over. So I don't know what that crazy is going to do. I don't quite. I hope that, like you said, I think that they've explained what she's doing, but they haven't explained why she's doing it yet. And I hope that they do.
Well, it's the sort of thing. I still think dude was the doctor at the new hospital that she's at. I still think she managed to play him, like you said, maybe not as easy as the other one. They probably had more history as well too. But I noticed one thing when they were talking, she chose her words very carefully. It seems like she was both answering his questions and, trying to, while simultaneously trying to, just sort of assuage his fears and make him think that, like, oh, this is just a jealous colleague also. But at the same time, she was pumping him for information.
Yeah, discredit her accuser all the while trying to find out who her accuser was.
Like, and you notice that in little key lines, like, did not Dr. So-and-so give me a glowing recommendation? Did all my references come back clear? Did they not all come back clear? And he's like, yes, and everything. And then she pins it on a jealous colleague and everything. And, plays to his point of pride and in getting him to not send that to HR and everything, and she's like, imagine if it was your career and you had a jealous colleague, because, this guy's, clearly, we've seen in the show a bit of an asshole, So he's like, she's got him to think about it from his own perspective.
And he said, like, I'm going to keep an eye out for further things. But who the fuck else is going to write him a letter about her? So I think that he's on the watch for her. But like you said, she did play to his, sense of ego a little bit, and got him to stop focusing on it. All the while, he still said he was going to, keep an eye on it. So I don't know if she got away with it 100%, but she was able to deflect enough to get herself out of that hot water again.
Right. Yeah, but like you said, the mistake on her part may well be killing the patient with gout. I don't know if she covers that or if she had a plan to cover that, or if that was just pure impulse on her part.
What do you think about the banging of the head? She did it last week and this week, banging her head against the wall. Is that just a sign of being crazy? Is there something more going on to that?
Well, I think that part of it, Well, I was going to mention the gout. Gout's not a deadly disease, so how he's not going to die from gout. So I don't know how she's going to sweep that one under the rug. Be like, oh yeah, like she had to have done it. Like you can't. He was in pain, but he's not going to die from gout.
Right.
But I think that the banging of the head thing. I've watched several different things. I've had several TBIs. I've had a lot of concussions and stuff. And there's times where my head hurts so bad, or I get so frustrated or so confused that it's hard for me to kind of, piece things together, or hard to kind of spit it out sometimes, or my blood sugar gets low and it's hard for me to, speak in full sentences, but I don't hit my head. So, but, there's a lot of special needs, children that I've seen, or, been around, or even adults that they have different ways of coping. But for her to be a full grown adult in doing that, I don't know if that was her coping mechanism, or if it was something that she did, maybe her whole life, that if she can't deal with something, that's how she deals with it, because she couldn't deal with him screaming anymore. It was driving her crazy. Like, it was driving her up the wall, just the constant like sound like a cow. But I don't know if it was maybe a special need of hers, like she's schizophrenic, or if she's got multiple personality disorder. I don't know, but I think that it's a tell, like you said, Brian. I think it's for them to show it in multiple episodes. I think that there's something more to that than what they're showing. I'm just not 100% sure what it is yet.
Well, yeah, and I think, like you said, it's a tale, and it may well be her suppressing the urge to kill him, because, as you mentioned earlier, gout's not exactly deadly, and so she can't just kill him for annoying her in any way, and just say, oh, he was over medicated, or it was his time. It's like, no, he's got gout. He's not just gonna die there.
His knees were inflamed. It wasn't his brain or his heart.
Right. So I think it was her way of coping with the idea that she'd have to let this man live, of trying to fight the urge to do what she does.
Yeah. That's about it as far as my notes. I even went back to my long form notes. Anything else y'all want to talk about? Do you think the
Let's talk about loyalty again.
Yeah, let's talk about loyalty.
Well, yeah, I think who is it? CPG Gray has a good video on this. It's not about mobs, but it is about how you maintain a hierarchy like that. And there is a level of reward to it too, which I would say, Rabbi and Otis, weren't incentivized with, that you would typically give someone who's doing that much work for you if you're going to maintain that type of organization.
Yeah, I think the scene, the reason we ended up arguing is the scene in which Josto tells Rabbi, a matter of fact, this is what's happening, and if obviously Rabbi reacts the way he does. For Josto to think that Josto thinks Rabbi is, I'm going to use the word loyal. Mm-hmm. He thinks by saying the things he's saying, it in no way, shape, or form will affect Rabbi.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and that's the way Josto says it. But to me, clearly, like you said, it does. And Josto, for him to think that Rabbi is that in tune with him, that loyal, that's a fallacy of Josto. Josto's of the assumption that everybody will take the knee and do whatever it is he says, but that's clearly not the case.
Well, yeah, and it's the sort of thing, however, that Rabbi wouldn't do that for anybody, because as we saw at the beginning of the series with the number of exchanges that he's gone through himself, it seems to me that he's seeing Satchel as a reflection of himself. And
yes, he says so.
He wants to, exactly. He's trying to save a kid from a situation that he wound up in. He kind of pities the situation he's in because he's been there multiple times and he is where he is now because of it. So it's a line he wouldn't cross for anybody.
You want to know about a couple lines
Giatano could take over and tell him to do it, and he'd be even less loyal to Giatano. Doesn't even like Giatano.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, doesn't like him. Let me see. I think that's about it. There was no reference to any of the other factions, really, besides the New York people. Like I said, we know there's a group in Fargo that we're assuming loyal to Cannon. And there's a group, who was the other group?
I mean, well, he bought it.
Yeah. And then Giatano, they alluded to him possibly having some guys coming from Italy. We're hearing this episode gave us a little bit of the politics going on with the basically, I guess, the mafia, because like Josto is sort of like, yeah, I got to play nice with the New York guys, but at the same time, screw them. I'm going to do what I want to do. He's playing a dangerous game with them. Like, he doesn't know. Yet again, I'm going to say it, but his guy that he sent to New York, where's his loyalties lie? They might. They absolutely might. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and that seemed to be a big theme of this episode, with the exception of what's going on with Loy Cannon, because, in a way, because he absorbed those lessons, Dr. Senator's kind of with him to a degree, because he's thinking to himself, like, what would Dr. Senator do?
That's a great, I should have mentioned that scene. Yes, the fact that he's still sort of mentoring him through memory and through him thinking, what would he do? Great point.
And Lloyd has that compass. However, a lot of our other main characters that we've seen throughout the episode, this episode mostly seemed to be about them being cornered in some way. We see Josto cornered because he's got to deal with the New York mob, potentially the Italian mob. He's got to deal with Lloyd, and he seems to, in his mind, he thought he found a way that wraps all that up nicely. And he's like, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, and then the New York guys are like, oh yeah, we'll help you out. Cool. Like, but you got to make peace with your brother first. And and then he's like, okay, I got a plan. We'll kill the kid. We'll pin it on him. We'll say, oh, my enemies did this. Like you said before. And then because of, like we previously mentioned, he does not understand people. Well, he doesn't seem to, or he doesn't seem to really be able to think outside of the context of I'm the capo.
Yeah,
he thinks I'm the capo, so I'm automatically in charge. So everybody's automatically going to do what I say with no considerations of their own. It's never okay, this guy's too close to these people. I'm not going to have him do it. He'll have to accept it later, and he will. I know he will. Because otherwise he'd do it that way. He wouldn't have asked the hitman he asked.
I still
don't remember his name. Yeah,
Antoon Dumini.
Because it's still Adrian in my head for some reason. I don't know why. Like, but yeah, he wouldn't have asked him to do it because his wife was watching the kids, and clearly he was going to get some pushback there. Clearly he was going to have a human moment in that moment, no matter what. He wouldn't be trying to slip him away from Rabbi in such an obvious way. Because it's the sort of thing, like I said, just Chacha is playing his hand sloppy. But I mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. Anything else, Spencer? You still there? Maybe not.
Yeah, I disagree with Larry.
He fell asleep during my thing. Yeah.
Well, no, I actually had to rejoin the call. Like
you were out.
I was out for like 30 seconds, but Larry was still talking, and then when it popped me back in, it muted me. But no, I don't really have anything else to say. I was just going to say I disagree with Larry just to fuck with him some more. But I mean, I don't agree with him, but that's okay. We don't have to keep going into that. Sorry. And it's Antoon. I said it like 4 times, but apparently I was muted.
That's what I said.
That's not what Larry said.
Oh.
Larry said Adrian again.
That's certainly not what
and then kept saying, I'm going to keep calling him Adrian.
So if we've learned anything from this episode, you should watch
It's
The
Antoon.
Wire. The guy's
And-
name's Antoon,
And you should definitely watch The Wire.
and you should watch.
Because all these things where you're like, nobody would do that. They
Well,
all do that.
I don't even want to go into that, but yeah, it doesn't matter. Anything
Ring a
else?
bell.
Yeah. I don't know. Anything else? Anybody?
No, that was it.
That's it. I'll watch The Wire eventually. You know,
No, you won't.
Or The
Don't
Godfather?
say.
probably
Watch-
not. No.
The Wire and The Godfather.
We're reviewing The Wire in December.
We might, yeah. We
I think we're just going to say it, just so Larry has to watch it,
We don't have
regardless
any-
of whether we actually do it or not.
All right. Thanks for listening. If you're still listening, and the Bly Manor review's going up in the next day or two, the final one, and then Mandalorian starts Friday, so we will be reviewing that. Check that out. Anyone who listened to our the Undoing review, we appreciate it. It's doing very well, and look forward to next
It's
Sunday.
an amazing show.
Yes. So we will see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.